56 grandchildren of Maria Theresa. On 20th of October 1740, Maria Theresa finally became Holy Roman Empress after her cousin's husband took over the throne for 3 years. Maria Theresa married Francis I, Holy Roman Emperor, and together they had 16 children. They married their children off to political marriages all around Europe. And that resulted in 56 grandchildren. So today we're going to look at the 56 grandchildren Maria Theresa's children had with their spouses. Maria Theresa's oldest son, Joseph, succeeded her as Joseph II, Holy Roman Emperor. He married Princess Isabella of Parma, and they had 2 children together, but none of them survived to adulthood. Isabella was scared of childbirth because her mother had died in childbirth. Isabella was also close with Joseph's sister, Maria Christina. On the 20th of March 1762, Isabella gave birth to a daughter named Maria Theresa after her grandmother. Her full name was Maria Theresa Elizabeth Philippine Louise Josephine Joanna. That's the name she was christened by, and she was styled as Archduchess of Austria. When the young girl was only 1 year old, her mother went into birth prematurely, and she gave birth to her only sibling, Maria Christine, who died a few moments after birth. Bella, grief-stricken, died a few days after her. Joseph was grief-stricken by his wife's death, so he put all his time into their surviving daughter, Maria Theresa. But she died at age 7, a few weeks before her 8th birthday, of a lung infection. Joseph's younger sister, Maria Christina, was their mother's favourite. Maria Theresa let her favourite child marry the man of her choice. She was the only sibling who was allowed to marry for love and not for political gain. The couple had no surviving children. Their only daughter died in childbirth. Her name was Maria Christina Theresa of Saxony. When her brother Leopold became Holy Roman Emperor after Joseph died, he let the couple adopt one of his surviving sons. His name was Archduke Charles, but more about him when we get on to Leopold. Another one of Maria Theresa's daughters was called Maria Amalia. She had 7 children with her husband. Her husband was Ferdinand I, Duke of Parma. On the 22nd of November 1770, Maria Amalia gave birth to her oldest child and first daughter, Princess Carolina of Parma. Her baptismal name was Carolina Maria Theresa Giuseppa Giovanna. It was named after her godparents, her paternal great-uncle Charles III of Spain, and her maternal grandmother, Empress Maria Theresa. Carolina was described as a beautiful but melancholic child. Carolina and her brother Louis were the favourites among their parents. They were personally instructed in religion by their father, despite the fact that their younger children were actually more interested in the subject than them. Carolina was just 8. Her and her younger brother Luigi were playing, and he hit his head off a marble table while they were playing, and he suffered from epilepsy. Her mother wanted her to marry her off to a German prince. Reportedly, however, her marriage was never arranged. Instead, her mother introduced her to Maximilian during his frequent trips to Italy, and when the Parmesan ducal family visited Saxony in the late 1780s, Carolina was able to spend time with Maximilian and reportedly fell in love with him. She was quite eager to marry him, and surprisingly her mother let her, even though he was not the heir to a throne. The couple had 6 children together. Their children were Princess Maria Ferdinanda, Princess Maria Anna, Prince Clement, Maria Josepha Amalia, John Frederick Augustus II. Carolina died of a fever on the 1st of March 1804 in Dernischen, more than 2 decades after her husband married her niece, Princess Maria Luisa Coletta of Parma. The couple's second child was Louis. Louis was born on the 5th of July 1773 at the Pizzina, Duchy of Parma. In 1795, Louis came to the Spanish court to finish his education and also married one of the king's daughters of Charles IV of Spain. Louis got to choose who was the most reliable for him. His daughters were Maria Amalia or the Infanta Maria Luisa. Louis chose Maria Luisa. The marriage between the two different characters turned out to be happy, though it was clouded by Louis' ill health. He was frail. He suffered chest problems, and since a childhood accident when he hit his head off the marble table, suffered from symptoms that had been identified as epilepsy fits. As time passed and went on, his health deteriorated and he grew to be increasingly dependent on his wife. The young couple remained in Spain during the early years of their marriage. While Louis was in Spain, the Duchy of Parma had been invaded by the French in 1796. Napoleon Bonaparte, who had conquered the majority of Italy and wanted to gain Spain as an ally against England, protested to confiscate the household of the Bourbon for their loss of the Duchy of Parma, Kingdom of Arabia, a new state that created the Grand Duchy of Tuscany. This was agreed upon the Treaty of Aranjuez. Louis had received the news of the crowning of Napoleon in Paris. Before taking the possession of Etruria, Louis had his wife and his son travel to Cantillo through France under the name of the Count of Levano, having invested in Paris as the King of Lithuania. Louis and his family had been invested in Paris as King of Etruria, and his family arrived in August 1801. At this time, Maria Luisa was pregnant and they travelled to Spain to attend the double wedding of Maria Luisa's brother Ferdinand and her younger sister Maria Isabel. Back in Etruria, Louis' health worsened, and in May 1803 he died at age 29, possibly due to an epileptic crisis. The couple's third child was a daughter called Maria Antonia. She was born on the 28th of November 1774 at the Duchy of Parma. Maria Antonia grew up with her brother and sisters in a ducal court of Parma, where she was affectionately known as Tongia. Opposite to what has been frequently stated, she was not named after her aunt Queen Marie Antoinette, who was guillotined when the French Revolution broke out. In 1796, Parma was invaded by France. While their parents were formally allowed to remain on their thrones, but they were watched by an outrage of French guards. Maria Antonia and her sister Carlotta were awarded their freedom as they were regarded as pontifical. Two sisters remained by the side of their parents as their support during the French invasion. They were both regarded to have the religious history of their father and the willpower of their mother. When their father died in October 1802, the sisters and their mother participated in his original state funeral. When their mother was exiled by the French after the funeral, they accompanied her to Prague, where they kept her company until her death. During their stay in Prague, she and her sister were described as humble and forgotten, passing their time in prayer. Maria Antonia never married, and she became an Ursuline novice in 1802. The following year, on the 22nd of April 1803, she officially received the habit of an Ursuline nun and changed her name to Sister Louise Marie, her long name being Luigia Maria. Her mother died. Her and her sister moved to Rome. She remained in Prague until the fall of Napoleon, after which she returned to Parma. She died in 1841. The couple's last surviving daughter was Maria Carlotta. She was born on the 1st of September 1777, at the Ducal Garden Palace at Parma Duchy. After the French invasion of Parma, Maria Carlotta was granted governor of a pension to live up her princess status. She was 20 years of age. She entered the Dominican order under the name Sister Gecian Dominica, being the new novelette in the Dominican convent of Parma. Her notable birth allowed her to go to the Cornello monastery, where she became prioress. During the following years, she led a quiet and modest life in the convent, where she died on April 6th. She died in 1830 at only the age of 35, so pretty young. The couple had other children, but they all died in infancy. Hope you enjoyed the first part of Maria Theresa's 56 grandchildren. The next part will be out either this week or next week. It depends how long it takes to make and do all the research.